So I started noticing an influx in conservative women claiming they want to remove women's rights, all while living in countries where they have the rights to drive, vote, marry who they want, wear what they want, and cosplay online as housewives. In this video, we will be taking a look at some prominent conservative women, such as Candace Owens, Ann Coulter, and Brett Cooper. Conservative women often make claims that do not add up, or they do not live the lifestyle they promote towards other women and the public. We are starting off with one of the most dominant girl bosses in the conservative movement, Candace Owens. Her entire shtick is that she's a black woman who is conservative. That's her identity. She's black and a woman and loves Trump. I'm not a fan of Trump, so I never paid much attention to her until she became an avid Andrew Tate supporter. Candace, like other conservative women, has been caught lying about her past. I believe the reason she supports Tate is linked to this photo of her with him and Paul Joseph Watson from 2019, years before Andrew became famous. Even if we ignore this, she usually involves herself in celebrity drama to maintain relevance. Some of them include Cardi B and Harry Styles. One of the times she went viral was when she complained about Harry Styles wearing a dress on the cover of a magazine. To be fair, the dress he wore was pretty ugly in my opinion. Candace claims in the East they have strong men, and in the West, men are being feminized. Somehow she blames this on Marxism. BTS is extremely popular, and many men in the East are feminine. I have no idea who she is referring to when she says the East, and I don't think she does either. Some of the responses pointed out how hypocritical Candace is. Some fans responded with images of Candace wearing blazer suits, asking why she doesn't look more feminine. Others pointed out that what Harry did wasn't anything new or shocking. Some examples were given such as Elton John, Prince, and Freddie Mercury of Queen. Candace responded back in a very performative way by saying pregnant women should be barefoot in the kitchen making sandwiches.
Sliced ham for my
What are you
amazing...
doing?
Making my husband a sandwich, of course. Because that's what a woman should do. Be in the kitchen making her husband a sandwich when she's 9 months pregnant and barefoot.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Yeah.
I'm calling this performative because she isn't a housewife by any means. Candace married a British millionaire, and she used to be a CEO just like her husband. Candace pursued an undergraduate degree in journalism, then worked as an intern for Vogue. In 2015, she was CEO of a marketing agency.
There is this emphasis, by the way, and I would say this is in lockstep with feminism today, on telling women to act like men. Yeah, would you agree? Like you could go, you want to be like a man. You can do that all by yourself. You don't need a man. All my single ladies, where are we at? Let's work 9 to 5. What? I don't want to, what? I want to stay home and cook, barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. These two are very wealthy. There's no reason for her to continue working and going to events while she is fully pregnant. But she does. Candace Owens on a stage, telling women from a paid gig that they should be at home, in a kitchen, barefoot, pregnant and uneducated, with no way to make their own money, is quite hilarious to me. This woman was a CEO. This woman didn't get married and start having children until she was in her 30s.
If I was a man, and I'm not a man, but if I was a man, I wouldn't hire a woman.
Candace was made famous by Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk. But by her own logic, she shouldn't even be working in the first place. Maybe Candace should take her own advice and stay in the kitchen. But we all know that won't happen. because that would get in her way of going on podcasts, surrounding herself with OnlyFans models, and defending people like the Tate brothers.
I think, well, first and foremost, I think, and I speak out on this, women are not desirable right now. Everyone's a Kim Kardashian clone.
Ma'am, did you do any research on who you are speaking to?
Women aren't desirable right now, as in the Western Hemisphere as a whole. And of course,
finding a wife is hard.
Finding a wife is hard, and it's because women are literally being conditioned to behave like sluts.
Completely. And they're also being conditioned to leave the man as soon as things get difficult.
Mm-hmm. I am fascinated by hoes. I'll say it. I'm absolutely fascinated by the way the hoe mind works, the way the hoe hive works. I'm fascinated.
Next
I cover it
documentary.
on my show. You are correct. It is trending.
And that's why
when
it's such a
Emma
hot
gets
topic
up
to
and does a
speak about.
video and says something like, it's chic to be divorced before you're 30. It is absolutely fascinating to see how someone's mind can be so warped.
Is going on podcasts that give thousands of dollars to porn stars, promoting conservative values. Likewise, does Candace believe that promoting people like Andrew Tate is good for the conservative movement? This man, who allegedly has children with multiple different porn stars.
Bro, all right, let me ask you a question, right? Let's say you meet a beautiful young 19-year-old woman. She's beautiful, she's 19, she's got a low body count. You're the second man she's ever going to have slept with in her life.
Oh, by the way, here's the funny thing. Women who are older, who are 25 and 26,
Haters.
who you're looking beyond, they're saying, wait, you're not contemplating us? You're looking to younger?
Yeah.
They can't call you a pedophile, so there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Man, that really is a good example of how when you travel the world, that's pure Western bullshit, bro.
Really?
You go Moscow, you walk in the club, there's a 60-year-old mafia boss surrounded by 18-year-old girls. Bro.
Really?
Oh, yeah, all day. It's completely normal. Completely.
Wait, the 6-year-old, he's not with 30-year-old chicks.
No, fuck no, he's rich. think he's picking up some used up pussy? He's rich. No, bro. Used up pussy's for the broke boys.
I'm really sick of seeing conservative women pretending to be innocent little housewives. Meanwhile, promoting and defending men like this nonstop and giving them more platforms to speak on. You have to wonder how someone's mind can be so warped. Now, we are moving on to Ann Coulter. Ann has written 13 books and is currently in her 60s. She identifies as a Christian and does not believe in evolution. According to multiple sources, she is unmarried and has 0 children. Considering how old she is, it's unlikely that will change. In 2021, she said she is against women's rights to vote. I'm not really sure how you can make an entire career and millions of dollars out of politics, and then say, you don't believe you should have the right to vote. Using that same logic, why do conservative women like Anne talk about politics at all? If you don't believe you should be voting, don't give the rest of us any advice or opinions on politics. On her Wikipedia page, it says she supports traditional gender roles. I find this to be a bit contradictory due to the fact she is unmarried and childless.
I just have a couple questions, actually. In your book, you devote an entire chapter to single mothers.
Yes.
And what happens to children raised in single-parent homes. You title the chapter, Victim of a Crime, Thank a Single Mother. What is your issue with single mothers? Because I know you don't have any kids. I mean, maybe you have stepkids. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. But, and I just, before you answer, I just want to say, you said that single motherhood is like a farm team for future criminals and social outcasts. 70% of inmates in prisons come from single-parent homes. Hollywood actresses using single motherhood as a way to promote their careers, and it says, you say it's very selfish for a single mother to have a baby without a father. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, well, we now have 30 or 40 years of social science research. I mean, I'm just citing, this is, dressed up numbers crunching. I'm just giving the numbers. 80% of the inmates in prisons were raised by single mothers. About 70% of the runaways of the child juvenile delinquents, juvenile murderers, juvenile rapists raised by single mothers. And the point is, this didn't happen by accident. The illegitimacy rate alone has gone up over 300% since 1970. And as I describe in my book, this was a specific plan by the left attacking the nuclear family. The most famous example.
Go back to the. I know you want to. I'm sorry. I know you want to do this whole left thing because that's what you do. That's your act.
No,
but what I do want
true.
to. But I do want to know.
I found this old clip of Ann Coulter on The View, and I thought it would be interesting to add it to this video because I actually agree with some of what she says. But first, let's go over all of it before I give my opinion.
No, it is not true that I'm leaving out race. There is, in fact, I cite a study by the Progressive Policy Institute, a liberal institute, saying that if you take single motherhood out of the equation, the black and white crime rates are exactly the same. So you take everything else out. Single motherhood is not good for children. That is a fact, and it is a fact that it is promoted.
I would like to ask you, because there's some nuggets of truth that you have in stuff that you write, but I don't see any compassion that you have. Do you go out and do you talk to single young girls about trying not to, to use birth control? Are you trying to be part of the solution?
Well, sure,
as opposed
of
to
course
just
I
judging
am.
and throwing out stuff?
Look, the more non-judgmental we have been about the mothers, the more real victims have been created.
Can I ask you
millions
something?
and millions per year.
I'm not doubting the numbers and statistics that Anne brings up. I just think it's a very interesting discussion because conservatives are the ones who think that young girls who are victims of sexual assault should be forced against their will to carry a fetus until full term, and then give birth and raise that child as a single mum, or give it up for adoption, despite the fact that the girl did not consent to any of that happening. None of the women on The View bring up this point, so I thought I would.
To think that I was trying to read people's minds, I believe someone said, or that I've had some personal experience with them. To the contrary, as I cite in the book, I am talking about things they have done and said. Barack Obama writes his first book, I think it was his first book, his autobiography, Dreams from My Father. He identifies with the father who abandoned him. He met one. I read the book.
I thought it was funny how at the end of that clip, some woman said, "He's a man." I have not read the book that Anne is quoting here, but I believe what she's saying, because most people who are half black and half white, like Obama, never identify with their white side. But that's a completely different topic. She's trying to make it sound like people identify with their father, even if he abandoned them as a child. And I don't think that is usually the case.
You do have, as I describe in that chapter, Hollywood, mainstream media, the New York Times, women's magazines exalting single motherhood, movie after movie about single motherhood, book after book.
Are you married?
Sisters are doing it for themselves.
Are you married? Are you married?
No, but
Do you have
it
kids?
wouldn't change the difference of the
Do you have
facts I
kids?
cite.
Do you have kids?
No, and it
Okay.
wouldn't change the difference
Well,
of
it
the
would
facts.
if you had children. You know more what you were talking about.
Children because
I have to agree with Whoopi Goldberg here. Although Anne might be right when it comes to statistics, she clearly has no experience with motherhood and didn't answer if she wanted children.
Please welcome controversial columnist and best-selling author Ann Coulter. Her new book is entitled Demonic. Ann said some outrageous comments about single mothers. And Ann, I really want to welcome you, but I don't get this about the single mothers. They should give up their kids for adoption.
Oh, definitely. That's what the statistics are. I mean, not once they're 14, but a woman who gets pregnant out of wedlock, if she wants to do the best thing for the child, it is overwhelming. She should give the child up for adoption because the statistics, both from the left and the right, are overwhelming on what happens to illegitimate children. About 70% of juvenile delinquents, teenage runaways, pregnancies out of wedlock are committed by the children of single mothers. If you were in the womb right now and you could choose whether to be black, white, rich, poor, the one thing you should hope for as a child in the womb is my parents are married.
Okay, I understand that gives stability and all kinds of emotional strength to a child. What I don't get, though, is that we're singling out the single mothers, pardon the redundancy, but we're not talking about these absent fathers.
Well,
where are these absent guys? I mean, these moms are doing a heroic job. I mean, they're out there, they're working sometimes 2 jobs, they're getting their kids through school, they're feeding them, and the dads are nowhere to be found, and nobody's attacking them.
no one's celebrating them either. I am responding to a culture out of Hollywood, the courts, the elite media that is promoting single motherhood. They are not promoting single fatherhood or deadbeat dads.
What do you say to women who say, you are demonizing single moms?
All I'm doing is citing statistics. So what works is the nuclear family. Now, sometimes that isn't going to happen. I mean, I do make a point of saying...
A lot of times it's not going to happen. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm hot under the collar.
No.
There's so many great moms that are trying to be mom and dad to their kids. I know that they cannot be emotionally mom and dad.
I agree on what she's saying here. I definitely don't think single motherhood should be promoted or encouraged. But she also said that nobody defends absent fathers. And that's not true at all. To be fair, the manosphere, MGTOW, and men's rights activists probably weren't as popular at the time this show aired. But those groups do defend and support men who abandon their children. I have seen it and heard it many times.
That's what single mothers have created. And like I say, if you want what's best for your child, if you are pregnant out of wedlock, either marry the father, and by the way, shotgun marriages used to work just fine, but we've gotten rid of the stigma of a woman having a child out of wedlock.
But the problem is, it's good to get rid of those stigmas, because we would put people always in a box. You know, this is the way you have to be, this is the way it works out.
And
you know, this is not an ideal world, and you're talking about an ideal world. Oh, in an ideal world, by the way, everyone has a mom and dad. We're going back, you know, to the days of happy days. You know, most of our young people don't know what that is.
When the kids turned out a lot better.
Well,
and they were given every advantage in life. Stigmas are good things. Look, we have a stigma against smokers.
Who are the single mothers of today?
Smoking is bad for you. But smoking is not as bad for you as being raised by a single mother. And yet, we do have stigmas, and they're good things. Stigmas against smoking, and yet smoking is not as bad for you as single motherhood. And there ought to be
How do you come to that conclusion?
I've just cited the statistics over and over again.
One kills you. We know that smoking kills you.
One destroys a life.
You don't think smoking destroys lives?
Maybe when you're 70, you have an increased chance of getting lung cancer. You're talking about what happens to children when they are not raised with a mother and father. Basically, every women's magazine is talking about, single mothers by choice, where women go and get artificially inseminated because they decide, oh, my clock is ticking, I want to have a baby, I don't care if I found a man in time. That is narcissistic, it is selfish, and it is not taking the interests of the child at heart at all. And you don't hear that coming from anybody else, so I am the counterweight citing the facts on single motherhood. Sometimes it happens, I wish them the best.
So she mentions women who get artificially inseminated. In my opinion, it's not necessarily their fault they can't find a man to start a family with. I'm sure many of those women are nice and have good intentions. Yet Anne doesn't offer any alternative suggestions for them. I think it's fair to say single motherhood shouldn't be encouraged, but filling orphanages with children shouldn't be encouraged either. Anne clearly doesn't want children or marriage, so I think it's hard for her to sympathize and/or understand women who do. I just don't see her suggestion as a problem solver. Also, I assume some of these statistics she's citing are from women who had children with multiple different men who maybe were criminals. I found this study from the University of Michigan by Cassandra Dorius, which states that 28% of American women with 2 or more children have them with more than one father. The study also states obvious things we already know, like that women with less education are more likely to have children with different men.
Cynthia has mixed feelings about returning to the show to find the father of her 4-year-old son, Michael. You see, on one hand, Cynthia feels, look at Michael. Michael's now 4. She feels ashamed that she has already DNA tested 6 men. But on the other hand, Cynthia says she's hopeful that the 7th man, whose name is Melson, will be proven to be Michael's dad. Watch this. In the case of 4-year-old Michael Melson, you are not.
I don't think it's fair to lump in women like that. With women who were in serious relationships, with men who got up one day and randomly decided to abandon their child and wife. This study points out that men will swap families and leave behind their biological children to go and start a new family. One of the most famous examples that popped into my mind was Eminem's dad. He abandoned his wife and son and started a new family across the country.
I mean, I think that when you say things like that and you kind of make these blanket statements based on statistics, I say to myself, gosh, I know so many good single mothers, so many heroic single mothers. I just can't agree with you on that. I really can't.
I wish them the best in their particular circumstance, but for everyone to keep their lips zipped, that's why you end up with an illegitimacy rate that has gone through the roof and is harming children and is creating two separate classes in America.
There's a part of this episode where he goes around the room and gives the microphone to women in the audience who say they are single mums or were raised by single mums. And yada yada yada, they turned out fine. Overall, what Anne is saying is statistically true, but she doesn't do a good job of getting the audience on her side, as she seems to prefer the more provocative approach.
My first question is for you. Do you have any children?
Not relevant to statistics.
Okay, because for me, I've seen...
It might not be relevant to statistics, but it is relevant to my video.
You don't know what it's like sometimes to have two parents. Sometimes, some people, it's worse to have two parents. I agree. You'd rather have just one parent who gives you all that love than two parents who are constantly arguing, who they've been together for years and they're miserable, and you can't speak for everybody. You're speaking about statistics.
Right.
You have to live it in order to understand it, not just by statistics.
And sometimes Derek Jeter strikes out. And yet, he's still a great baseball player because we look at overall how many times at bats, how many times a home run. When you have 70% of the children in juvenile delinquent institutions coming from single-parent homes, yes, I'm sure some single mothers do a terrific job, and I'm sure there are some two parents who do a terrible job. And yet, the statistics are the statistics.
And we have more from the audience.
You keep saying, statistics, but anybody can make up a statistic.
That's why there's so many of them, from both the left and from the right, and for 30 years
Where do you
now.
think it's okay to say all this?
Okay, you know what? You may as well stand up.
My mother was a single mom, and I'm getting emotional.
That's fine. You're saying what you feel.
I can't talk now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you may as well stand up and say, I'm a smoker and I'm very upset about the smoking statistics, and don't you tell me about lung cancer. The statistics are the statistics.
Nice. She's talking about something important to her.
So is smoking, and people dying of smoking, and so is people being raised by single mothers.
I don't understand.
Standing up and saying, I'm a single mother and you can't say that is not an argument.
Tell her about your mom.
I didn't say that I was a single mother. I come from a single family.
Okay,
I'm not a rapist. I'm not a murderer.
Don't yell at.
Not trying to repeat myself, but in my opinion, Anne does not do a good job of getting the women in the audience on her side. This woman was visibly emotional and took what Anne said very personally. I think she could have been a bit more careful with her words, but obviously, that's just not her style.
Your mom.
I didn't say that I was a single mother. I come from a single family.
Okay,
I'm not a rapist. I'm not a murderer.
Don't yell at me about what the smoking statistics are.
We're not talking about smoking, lady. We're talking about single parents. We're talking about something far more important than smoking, I feel.
Yes, as I said, it's more damaging to a child.
So for you to even put those two together is ridiculous. I know you're saying this stuff, but do you think about it before you say it?
No, just shoot off at the mouth. It's a chapter of my last book. It has the studies there if you're interested. It is study after study. No, I'm just shooting off the top of my head what comes into my mind.
I will give Anne credit and say that I do agree with some of her views, But overall, I think it's silly for any woman to claim she doesn't support women's right to vote. Meanwhile, encouraging others to vote the way she likes and believe in the values she has. I see this trend with many conservative women, and it confuses me that nobody ever calls them out on this. Hence why I decided to make this video. This brings us to Brett Cooper, the boring Ben Shapiro clone. Her entire career was astroturfed. If you don't know what that means, it's somewhat similar to calling someone a trust fund baby. Astroturfing is the deceptive practice of presenting someone or something as organically made and supported, while hiding the sponsors from the public. AstroTurf is a brand of synthetic carpet that is designed to resemble real grass. In politics, people call politicians or political organizations astroturfed if they appear to be funded by billionaires who are pushing an agenda or something that is harmful. So in the most simple description, calling someone astroturf or astroturfed is the same as calling someone fake. A good example of something that was astroturfed is Ben Shapiro's company, The Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is the company that made Brett Cooper famous on YouTube by, allegedly, using bots to artificially give her subscribers, which therefore got her boosted in the algorithm and into people's recommendations on YouTube. The Daily Wire received its initial funding from Faris and Dan Wilkes, conservative billionaires involved in the petroleum industry. The Wilk brothers previously co-founded a hydraulic fracturing company. Hydraulic fracturing is used to extract oil and natural gas. It is controversial due to its potential environmental impact, including water contamination, air pollution, and earthquakes. She started off reading comments, hence her channel, being called the Comments Section with Brett Cooper. Her content is generic and gives off a very AI-generated vibe. She talks about current TikTok content and gives a generic conservative opinion. Then at the end of the video, she reads comments. That's the gist of her content. I noticed she had made videos labeling Gen Z as lazy and saying we should work full-time jobs before 18. But then she's also promoting the traditional housewife. She's hitting the boomer demographic by calling Gen Z lazy and saying we don't want to work, while simultaneously claiming women who don't want to work regular jobs are good.
But I saw a conversation on X that absolutely took me aback, and it was not because it was particularly shocking or outlandish or horrifying, but I genuinely thought that we all agreed on this and that it just didn't warrant a discussion. But apparently, it does. The left does not think that young people should have jobs, and they're claiming that teens working is oppressive child labor pushed by our capitalist society. You literally cannot make this stuff up.
Before we go any further, her background is in child acting. During high school, Brett was homeschooled by her mother. She claims her school day ended at 12. To me, this comes off as a very out-of-touch conservative moment, because I don't think most people have parents who have the time or ability to give their kids this lifestyle.
So this all started from a now deleted tweet where a random account posted a video from TikTok, and she said, child labor is back in action in America. And you can see the screenshot here. It's a kid. It was just a video of a 14-year-old boy working at Burger King, which I'm sorry, is totally normal and legal. We all have this warped idea now that working a fast food job is some long-term career. And for some people, I'm sure it is now, but we're demanding, living wage, you need to be making, $35 an hour. Until recently, this job was for somebody that was his age. It was for tweens, teens, college students. This is not shocking. The fact that people online were freaking out about this is wild to me. Now, guys, we had to blur this video because he's under the age of 18, but I promise you, behind this blur, this kid is smiling. Like, he is having the best time. There were so many people commenting saying, there is nothing wrong here, because this kid is obviously very happy. If you want to actually see him working, I'm sure you can find the video on Twitter or on TikTok because it has been circulating for days now. But this kid is not oppressed in the slightest.
I agree. I don't think this 14-year-old boy is being oppressed, but not all jobs teenagers work are the same. For example, Lauren Showers lost his arm and legs while operating a forklift when he was 18. John Higgins broke his back while operating a forklift when he was 16. Teenagers working jobs like this are often not given the training they need.
We've been talking so much about Gen Alpha recently and the utter lack of personal responsibility, the utter lack of self-awareness and self-control. Maybe they should go get a job at Sephora rather than looting the damn stores.
The fact that there are girls under the age of 10 concerned with their looks and buying makeup will never not disturb me. I know this is not viewed as a big deal by most people, but I hate the women who show zero empathy towards these girls. Anyways, back to the main topic. What conservatives never acknowledge is the reason why people in Gen Z or Gen Alpha might not want to work is because we are told we can't even make a living or afford a house on the same income our grandparents were able to. Maybe, just maybe, that might have something to do with this situation.
Like, we are the generation entering the workforce with the least amount of work experience of any generation ever, literally ever. And it's because the rate of teenage workers has been declining for over 20 years. There was a recent study done at George Mason University, and they found that the percentage of teens not in the labor force who reported wanting a job fell by almost half between 1994 and 2009, from 24% to 13%. And much of that was caused by teens being exclusively in school rather than combining school and work. And this all makes sense. Like, we have prioritized kids focusing wholly on school and extracurricular so that they can get into a good college, they can do everything right, so they can get a good job. There's no time for work experience before that because their lives are so dominated by school.
This woman is preaching exactly what conservatives want. They want young, uneducated workers who get little to no vacation time. Let me remind you, we are not just talking about a country that has a poor education system and poor healthcare. Conservatives want there to be no paid vacation days, no paid maternity leave, nothing. I have a feeling her and Ben would just label this as Marxist propaganda.
The responsibilities of a real job are horrifying. I'm sure you guys have seen the videos on TikTok where they're going, oh, I have to show up at 8 a.m. I can't believe Yeah, if you had maybe punched a clock in high school, you would understand that that's normal and you would have gotten used to it. That is absolutely wild. And then this historic increase, the 14-year high, 37%. Like, it's good that teenagers are working again and getting that experience, but that is nowhere near where it was in the 90s. And our economy is behind this change. Young people have realized that if they want financial independence, they need to work because their allowances from their parents are not going to cut it, especially when their parents are also feeling the hit from this economy. According to WAPO, inflation has been a major factor. Students from lower income families say that they are working to help their parents cover rent and utilities, while others are using the extra money to pay for the rising cost of gas and car insurance or outings with friends. So maybe, guys, this is the singular good consequence of Biden's economy. We can look on the bright side here, but now I'm seeing this new trend on social media where girls are fed up with the fact that they have to work. They don't want to be girl bosses anymore. They are asking to rewind the clock and go back to the times that they had to stay in the home and not actually go to work, which is incredibly ironic considering that feminism runs rampant in our world.
So what she's about to show is a trend started by women who believed all the conservative trad wife propaganda. Basically, it's women who claim to not want a job or romanticizing the 1950s, because they would rather sit around watching soap operas and getting their nails done than work a full-time job. Conservatives saw this as a win, because all these people are completely clueless about what the 1950s was like, or what being a housewife is like.
Alrighty, so the video that sparked this entire episode and a lot of these conversations online is this TikTok from a couple months ago, and it now has like over 6 million views. Let's watch this.
Whoever fought for women to get jobs, why? Why did we do that? I am so tired. I want to just put my feet up. Like, I am Oh my god.
6 million views, and the comments did not disappoint. Somebody said, for real, why did they do that? I would have been completely chill running a household, cooking, going shopping, cleaning, stress-free, like, ugh, I hate working.
I don't like my job, and I don't think I'm gonna go anymore.
Another person said, we're meant for home and to look pretty. I thought we hated the 1950s. I thought that's what feminism taught us. That we are supposed to hate flitting around the house in a little, tightly waisted dress and, cooking dinner for our husbands. I thought that was a terrible, terrible thing, but we want that now? Shocking how it all came full circle.
So I have seen this trend, and it actually is genuinely dark and depressing. There were videos of women saying they hate the women who fought for their rights. These women wouldn't be able to survive a week without makeup or social media, but think they could survive in the 1950s or in a country where they can't vote.
You know what you did, Shane. Oh! Sharkeisha! Oh my god! Sharkeisha! What you did, Shane. Oh! Sharkeisha! Oh my god! Sharkeisha! You know.
So this woman is very obviously imitating a Marilyn Monroe aesthetic. Which is ironic because the abuse that Marilyn endured during her lifetime is proof that being a beautiful, desirable, quintessential woman of this era will not save you from abuse. After this iconic shoot for the 7-Year Itch, her husband, Joe DiMaggio, took her up to their hotel room, beat the shit out of her, and she returned to set the next morning where nobody said anything about the visible bruises she had. Because that is the culture you're romanticizing.
I want to start this video by saying that I'm not asking for money and I'm not asking for sympathy. What I'm asking for is if you are a young 14, 16, 21-year-old girl, listen up. I drove to the grocery store. I need to grab some milk and bread and a couple things, flipped open the bank app on my phone, and I've been sitting in my car crying ever since because I never have enough money. And why do I never have enough money? Because when I was a 19-year-old girl, I fell in love. My Mormon faith told me that I was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. I got married. I started having babies. I dropped out of college. I never had a career. My only jobs that I ever had in life were a waitress at the Olive Garden and managing a pretzel maker in a mall. Oh, my first couple years of marriage, I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I bought a windshield business. I was 20. And my Mormon stake president reminded me that women weren't supposed to work, so I quit my own business, handed it over to my husband, took my name off of it. I would work our family business throughout the next 24 years of my marriage, but I never got paid. I didn't have a salary. My name wasn't on it. I literally worked for room and board. That's it. I would eventually also launch a custom home building company with my uncle as the architect and my friends as the builder, my designs, my realtor. But again, because my husband was the man, his name was on all of the projects, his name was on the business. I remember one of the last custom homes that I built, we sold it and made about a $260,000 profit. That money all went into his bank account. I didn't even have a bank account. I should have said that in the beginning. I never had a bank account. He would give me little envelopes of cash to go grocery shopping with. Anyway, that house sells, the money goes in the bank. I just asked if I could buy myself a piano with the money. I had worked on building that house for 2 years. All of the money went into his bank account. Nothing was under my name. I got a piano and I got a free house to live in. And I got groceries. So I found myself divorced at age 44 just 5 years ago, and within just a few months I was living in my car while he made about $250,000. He would eventually quit that job so that he wouldn't have to pay alimony and child support. He has only paid alimony one time ever in the 5 years since we've been divorced. Once ever. Right after my divorce, I remember being really confident about my ability to get a job, so I put together a resume. I remember one of the first interviews that I had as a management position for a windshield company, similar to the one that we had run. And the man actually laughing as he was interviewing me, like he was really sympathetic. He wasn't being a douchebag, but he was laughing. And he's like, so let me get this straight. You helped manage your family windshield business with your husband, but you were mostly a stay-at-home mom, and all you did was like the marketing and the hiring, firing, and some of the strategy for the business. But it became really apparent that I needed so many more skills to have any type of management job. I couldn't even work the basic computers. He told me in the interview, please don't apply for any more jobs like this. You are not qualified at all. You're not capable of doing this unless you go back to school and get your degree or get some different experience. And so I ended up, my first job after my divorce was $11 an hour, 4 hours a day, working as an assistant to a school teacher in an elementary school. I made $44 a day. For 24 years, I lived in million-dollar homes. I vacationed all over the world. I spent my summers in Hawaii. I could buy myself $500 jeans, diamond tennis bracelets. We had boats and RVs and whatever I wanted. And it never bothered me once that my financial security was dependent on that man being in love with me. I never realized that him liking me or not liking me or finding me sexy or attractive or interesting determined whether or not my children could eat, whether or not I could buy myself a fucking jug of milk and a loaf of bread. So I had my 5th surgery in 2 years, 2 weeks ago, and I'm supposed to be in bed resting, and I can't because I've worked 7 days a week since my divorce 5 years ago, which is why I'm covered in paint and looking like crap. We actually have a 4-day weekend here in Tucson, and since my partner isn't working, he's working on furniture flip partner projects with me. I have no retirement. I have no savings, no education, no resume. I was almost a straight A student throughout all of my education. I went to college at age 17. I had dreams for my future. I'm working so hard to get myself out of just perpetual side hustle hell. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wonder why. Why I didn't have a fucking backup plan. Why my kids eating and having stability was dependent on a romantic relationship. Why nobody told me to put money in the bank. Why nobody told me don't have babies until you have an education and some experience. Don't have so many kids. I wish somebody had told me to put my name on our vehicle loans and to put my name on our houses. I wish somebody had told me that it's okay to put those babies in daycare for a couple days a week and go to college and have a job. And I think I need to do an entire Trad Wife sequel, because you can be happy and rich and loving your life like Ballerina Farm until the guy walks out. I want you guys to imagine for a minute, even rich Hannah, if Deanna walked out, if all of his financial backing and he had to sell the farm, and then what does she have? Find another rich boy to marry? I just don't want one more woman to DM me, comment, send me their stories, cry to me about how hard it is for them to support their families, and I am so tired of living my own story. We have to make this stop. Raise your daughters to be financially independent. Focus on their futures and educations just as much as you focus on your sons. I wish that someone had done that for me.
As you can see, this trend is mostly influenced by people who think a traditional lifestyle is a photo of a woman with a full face of makeup on who is milking a cow in a field. Then it gets reposted everywhere by conservatives saying, "This is the kind of woman I want, but feminists took this away from me." Women, would you rather have a 9-to-5 job and work all day? Or live in a mansion and have a hired photographer take photos of you wearing a sundress in a field? Conservative propaganda is so bad, I legitimately don't understand how any woman could fall for this. Imagine pretending being a housewife is easy. I just want to say that I have nothing but respect for actual housewives. I think it's a wholesome job and lifestyle choice. My problem is with these privileged conservatives who are making low-tier propaganda and think it's cute and funny to post this ignorant shit everywhere.
We've been talking a lot about the growing divide between men and women and how this could turn increasingly disastrous for society and just our population as a whole. And in one article we read, it was heavily focused on South Korea, specifically their very scary population decline and the terrible gender relations that are plaguing their country, which has caused an outspokenly anti-feminist president to be elected, which in my opinion is a very good thing. But if you want to watch that video, we will link it below. It just came out yesterday. But now, thanks to TikTok, per usual, I have seen some key evidence as to how all of this might have come about in South Korea. And it feels very similar to things that we've seen in the United States, sadly so. Okay, so I need to introduce you all to the 4B movement.
What the hell is even that?
It is a radical feminist movement that started around 2016, 2018 in South Korea that tells women that they should not just fight the patriarchy. No, they shouldn't fight the patriarchy. They should just turn their back on it and leave men in the dust. A boycott of men, if you will. Here's the backstory.
The 4B movement is based on 4 pillars, each of which starts with B, the Korean word for no. Bihon, no heterosexual marriage. Bichulsan, no childbirth. Biyone, no dating men. And Biseksu, no heterosexual sexual relationships.
Lesbians have never been so happy. This is big for South Korean lesbians. Maybe this is why it was created. Maybe they were just like, there are not enough of us. I'm tired. I have nobody to date. I'm going to start a political movement and I'm going to get some chicks. That's my opinion. That's my hot take. Just kidding, but also not really. Okay, we'll finish the TikTok.
One thing I will say I admire about conservatives is their ability to be consistently insensitive about women's issues.
The Escape the Corset movement back in 2016 saw Korean women rejecting societal expectations placed upon them, taking aim at the country's internationally renowned beauty industry by shaving their heads on camera and refusing to wear makeup.
So brave. They are just not wearing makeup. Oh my God. Me on a Saturday? You are so brave.
So as you know earlier, I showed you some clips of the young girls in Sephora buying makeup. They were obviously not Korean, but it wouldn't surprise me if similar makeup and cosmetic procedures are encouraged towards young Korean girls too.
Increased visibility of the 4B movement comes at a time of demographic crisis in South Korea, which has one of the lowest fertility rates in the world at 0.8 births per woman compared to the global
Crazy.
average of 2.3, according to World Bank data.
So there you have it. And people love this. And they think, oh, stunning and brave. That is the usual response. Somebody commented and said, iconic. Another person said, I love this so bad. Somebody else said, this is the truest example of standing on business.
I think it's funny to see women like this get offended by women who just want to be loved and treated fairly. I don't understand why this concept is so offensive to conservatives.
Here's another video.
Korean women literally just gave up on their men. They're like, they're assholes, they're not gonna change, so we're all gonna go extinct. But I just think that's so funny. That's also very Korean. Like, Korean as an ethnicity is about to go away, and Korean women are literally just like...
Now, ma'am, I have a genuine question. Do you think that population extinction and societal collapse is effing funny? Because that is literally what you are promoting.
I find it quite funny how tone-deaf conservatives are. When the topic comes up of taking away women's rights, conservatives cheer that on. If women respond by saying, we aren't interested in dating men who hate us and want to take away our rights, conservatives act genuinely shocked. Every single time. So yeah, I find that funny.
Because that is literally what you are promoting. South Korea's economy is already in trouble. So what happens when there is no one left to work? No one left to innovate, to keep infrastructure moving whatsoever? Like, what happens when your generation retires or dies and the cycle literally halts? When there is nobody to work in your retirement homes, in your hospitals to take care of you? And maybe that sounds selfish, but that is how the world keeps moving. And then on a broader scale, do you actually care so little about your lineage and your culture that you are willing for it to die out because you've adopted some immature and ill-educated hatred of men? Because that's basically what you're saying.
A quick Google search will tell you the rise of the 4B movement is linked to a stabbing done by a 34-year-old man who specifically targeted a woman to victimize.
Somebody else said, here we go, America needs a 4B movement so badly. Literally, we don't. We really do not.
This woman has such bad observational skills. There's no way she hasn't seen the many memes from conservative men talking about how they hate Western women or white women. Also, the US does not have a federal law requiring employers to provide paid maternity leave. This is what I found online. The United States is the only country among 41 nations that does not mandate any paid leave for new parents. Personally, if I had to choose between having a child in South Korea or America, I would choose South Korea in a heartbeat. They even have something called priority seats. If something like this was made in America, I feel like it would get boycotted and labeled as transphobic or misandrist. Meanwhile, women in South Korea are entitled to 90 days of paid maternity leave, which can be extended to 120 days in the case of twins. Isn't it interesting how countries like South Korea and Japan offer incentives to their women to fix their birth rates, yet America won't do that? Remember this when conservatives complain about the low birth rate.
Genuine question. Do you think that population extinction and societal collapse is effing funny?
If it's a society where men put spy cams in women's public bathrooms and face no repercussions, then yes. This affected thousands of women, including celebrities, and ended up becoming a worldwide epidemic. By the way, spy cams were probably one of the largest benefactors in the creation of the 4B movement. Not that Brett Cooper cares, because apparently men are the real victims here, right?
Genuine question. Do you think that population extinction and societal collapse is effing funny?
Well, if it's a society where most people think like you, then yes.
You need a wake-up call. Like, this is a matriarchy by all accounts. You need a wake-up call. Like, this is a matriarchy by all accounts. You need a wake-up call. Like, this is a matriarchy by all accounts. 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 Women are graduating college at higher rates. They are working more. They are healthier. They are dropping men and choosing to be single. Meanwhile, there is a male loneliness epidemic. They are more suicidal. They are more likely to be homeless. They are less likely to work.
And there it is, the good old-fashioned conservative talking point. When women are failing, it's our fault. But when men are failing, it's society's fault, and we have to do something.
But back to the point. We need to uplift and support men more than ever because they have been beaten down by movements like these for years now. And so obviously they're just tapping out, and this is how collapse begins.
It will come as no surprise to all of you that she speaks highly of passport bros, aka sex pests. If you are unaware, passport bro is a term used to describe, generally, old/middle-aged men who are bald, ungroomed, fat, narcissistic, and misogynistic. They struggle finding wives in their own countries or continents because these men are hyper-predators.
Passport bros. Oh, have you heard of passport bros?
What is a passport bro?
Okay, passport bros are men that are so fed up with Western women because we're all apparently so woke and so terrible and Western women don't want to be wives that they are now going to other countries to find wives.
Like which countries?
Like Southeast Asia, they're going to the Philippines, the Dominican Republic.
So it's like the opposite of the mail order bride.
Yeah. And then
Feels more expensive, but
It is. Yeah. Well, actually, you can go to these countries and they're usually cheaper. And so a lot of these men get remote jobs. And so they go there and they live in these countries and then they meet these women. And then women in the Western world, specifically the United States, are so pissed off about it. And they're like,
yeah, so this is not accurate. These men are hyper-predators. No woman who wants a loving relationship is jealous of gross old men who are porn addicts and sex pests.
And then women in the Western world, specifically the United States, are so pissed off about it. And they're like, you're going to all these countries where these women don't even know how to speak English. They can't even read. They're so uneducated. And then the men film themselves with these women and show themselves on dates. And the women are so elegant and they're so well spoken and they're so traditional. And they're like, look at these women. They're so respectful and kind. And
She is completely misrepresenting that community of creepy old men. This is just like how Candace lies for Andrew Tate. I assume the reason Brett is lying about sex tourists is because she knows much of her audience are these types of men. So before this video gets to the 1 hour mark, I am going to say farewell. I had more clips I thought about adding to this video, but I didn't want it to be too long. I will be making a part 2 So subscribe if you want to be notified about it when it drops. With all that being said, I hope this video was entertaining and informative. Peace.